Hi everyone, welcome back to SGTV. Once again, we've got Cathy on the show from Little Miss Electrical. Today we're going to be talking about a slightly different issue, which is bullying on site. I know nowadays things are coming to light more, which is only a good thing. But I want to sort of talk to Cathy about, have you ever witnessed anything like that on site, or any places you've worked in particular?
I don't think I've ever witnessed particular bullying on site, unless you're sort of familiar with a group of people. What is bullying and what's just banter. I don't think building sites really have a HR department. I was employed from being sort of 12 till like about 2 years ago when I retrained and set up on my own, and there was always, or most of the time, like a manager you could speak to if someone was bullying your HR department, or and certainly in bigger companies I've worked for, that there was somebody within HR. Whereas I don't think building sites have HR departments.
No.
There isn't like a lady sat in the corner at a desk that you can just go and say.
Do you think that sort of can be a green light? Because I mean, having worked on site myself, it is a banter environment. Everyone has a joke. But do you think sometimes either it can be someone could take that further because they know they could get away with it?
I don't know. I think there's like a fine line between lads having a joke and stuff getting a bit out of hand. And I do think, like, when a lot of people get together and something starts getting a bit silly, it can quite quickly get out of hand. But I don't know. I think you'd have to be quite sort of intentionally picking on someone to try and get away with something, secretly without HR noticing or whatever. But I suppose there maybe just isn't the same sort of procedures in place on a building site that you get in some other types of company where, like you say, there's a complaints procedure or a HR procedure. And also I think probably with site work, if you go and say, I think he's bullying me or he's picking on me or whatever, then you probably get a bit more grief for reporting that, which, it's to say, he's bullying me, and then him saying, it's a joke. I suppose there's that in any company where you could just say it's just a joke.
Do you think there is that sort of misconception as well, where say an older generation of people on site might be seeing it as just having a laugh, but then maybe perhaps a younger generation who aren't as used to that might not know how to take it and might think it's bullying, and that might be affecting them in other ways?
Yeah, definitely. I think like older generations probably have got a lot more
thick skin.
Yeah, thick skin and can take banter a lot better and just say whatever. Whereas I remember when I first, before I retrained, my boyfriend's plasterer and he works on site more, and if it's not necessarily on site, it's more with groups of people and lads. And if someone upset me at work, I'd be quite like, this girl said this to me, and he'd go, tell her to F off. And I'm like, I can't do that. And I'd have to sit quietly at my desk and hold my nerve a bit and just try not let it bother me. Whereas he'd be like, if someone spoke to me like that, I'd tell them where to go. And I'm like, you can't do that. I suppose that's quite like a big, when I eventually did decide to retrain as an electrician and do it full time, the big difference between him doing the site work and me in an office is what people kept calling to me office politics, which was, I suppose, when people that can be quite arsey and you can't really say anything because there is a HR department. So I suppose in some ways that HR department might be there as someone to go to, but at the same time they might make you feel more like you can't just say to someone, do you know, actually you're bothering me, because of like office politics or whatever. Whereas on site you could probably just say, do you know what, do one or whatever. and then they might just get the impression. So maybe actually on site there might more be a situation where you can stick up for yourself a bit more and have a bit more banter. When I first went onto sites where there was groups of lads and they'd say stuff and I'd be a bit like, oh God. Whereas now, I've found that you've got to have quite extreme banter to kind of keep up with people. Like, I know when I'm in certain people's company, if I don't go back to them with quite like
equally messed up comments,
like quite weird stuff as well, then they'll be like, they will just rip you apart, which you've got to be quite tough for. If I ever have like younger people with me on work experience or I always say to them, oh, don't take any notice of these, like, don't worry, don't listen to what they say, you know, because I suppose I probably worry a bit that they might offend them when, like you say, they're having a bit of a joke or banter.
So what would you do if, say, one of your employees was being bullied on a particular site? I mean, how do you think you'd handle that?
Oh, do you know, I've not really thought about that, I suppose. I don't know, it depends, I suppose it depends how long we're going to be on the site for. I did have, on one of our jobs, I did have a comment brought to my attention from one of the girls about somebody who was being a bit maybe arsey with them, and when I'd not really spent a lot of time with this person, and when I did, I was like, oh, I can see where she's coming from with that. But we just kind of had a chat about it, said, you know, he comes across a bit like that, but you know, it might just be because of this, or it might just be because of that. Can we manage with it? Yeah, we can. Let's just not take any notice of him when he starts being like that. And so yeah, so I suppose it's just kind of talking it through with the person who's upset, seeing how much it's bothering them, whether it is something that maybe they need to be not put onto that job again, or put onto that job as a minimum, or you know, maybe it's something that needs actually saying, right, we need to talk about this with that person. But it's hard as well, because if there's different companies and they don't all, like, if for me to try and say to somebody, oh, you're bullying one of my staff, is a bit hard when that they don't work for my company as well. So I don't know really, I suppose I'd have to cross that bridge when I come to it, but I think if you can just try and minimise the impact it's having on your team member, and try and sort of laugh it off, or turn it round, or my sister's, she does like coaching and NLP and stuff like that, and she's always saying to me, like, maybe it's them actually, or maybe you just think that they're being horrible to you, but actually they're just having a bad day. And she always like thinks of another way to think about what someone is saying, so that actually you don't take it as hard as what you do. And I think that's probably a really good thing to practice when maybe you get offended by somebody. Actually, are they trying to be offensive, or have you just taken it like that because you're upset already, or something else has bothered you? So I think that's probably the best thing.
It is difficult. Like you say, some of the younger generation might not be as used to it, and being thick-skinned and sort of trying to remember the whole sticks and stones mantra is something that, you know, especially on site, perhaps you shouldn't have to do, but it's probably worth equipping yourself with that. Yeah,
definitely. Like some of the stuff that my boyfriend says to the lads who work with him and vice versa, I'm like, what? But I just have to, like, because obviously I wouldn't say stuff like that to me or when I'm at home with him, but that's because they're all together and it's in a group and they're getting giddy and like they do. But yeah, like you say, being thick-skinned and just trying to prepare yourself a bit for it, and just think, you know, I don't need to take too much notice of what's being said if it's not serious. You know, you've got to just remember that sometimes stuff's just a joke. And I'm quite like a like I said previously, I wouldn't banter like that. I would just be like, what? Whereas now I'm just like,
give it as much as you get.
Yeah, just either give it back or just don't even. Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's a slightly different subject, but we hope for anyone out there it might be, you know, relevant or helpful. And if you want to see more from me and Cathy, you can find us here at SGTV, where you can like and subscribe, and you'll be up to date with all the latest product videos and discussions about the industry. I hope we see you again soon. Thank you.